Welcome to Brainwaves Bistro. Grab yourselves a cuppa, kick back, and join us for mental health talk with a positive vibe. Here's Julianne.
I am privileged to introduce you all to Suzanne Giesemann, best-selling author and worldwide highly acclaimed psychic and medium, and listed as one of the top 100 most influential spiritual guides of our time. Hi, Suzanne.
How are you, Julianne? Great to be here.
We're so delighted to have you. And Suzanne, this may blow people away. You were a former U.S. naval commander and the aide of the chief of the U.S. military. Wow. That is aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. What a responsible job. And you also have a master's degree in national security of this. Then we learn of a huge shift. And in your life-changing book, The Awakened Way, we can follow your own awakening to the awareness of a higher consciousness. This is so exciting. And Suzanne is here to share with us all, as she does with sometimes 8 million viewers. Now you've got the Australians, the hope, love, and joy this awakening has brought to herself and so many around the world. But before I formally introduce Suzanne, I just want to emphasize that so many medicos, neuroscience, neurosurgeons foresee in this time a spiritual revolution. Evidence-backed research from such notable institutions as the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia Medical School, the Wondrous Certified Research Center for Mediumship, and even the latest brain imaging support the existence of higher consciousness and an expanded reality. This is so exciting. Welcome, Suzanne, and we are privileged, so privileged to be part of your audience, as I said, now at 8 million around the world. We are honored and intrigued and ready to learn more. Yes, welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you so much. It's been my goal since I discovered the greater reality to share that with more people and bring credibility to the fact that there is higher consciousness that we can communicate with beyond the physical body. So I love the efforts that you're making to bring the scientific side into this.
And tell us about that huge shift in your understanding of life that brings, well, it brings hope and comfort to yourself and so many. Suzanne?
Well, the shift really is coming to know that we are not only human. I teach, and my latest book, as you said, is called The Awakened Way of Living. And that's the understanding that we are so much more than these bodies. And many people know this. They have an idea that there's more. But because of my left brain military background, I seek evidence of this connection that all of us can achieve with higher consciousness. And so when I tune in to people who have passed, to higher beings, I ask them to tell me things that I couldn't possibly know, and they do so every time. So I encourage other people to put higher consciousness to the test.
Well, why looking from this new perspective that you found some time ago is the soul, as you describe, or you describe it as the eyes of the soul, the key to higher consciousness and more joyful living in the now. Suzanne?
Well, most humans are walking around, as I said before, thinking that we're only human, and we are drawn in, sucked into the drama of the objective external world until and unless we make that shift and explore our inner world, we don't realize that there is a much more spacious aspect to ourselves than this restricted, limited view that we have. So making that shift to go within and, as you said, see with the eyes of the soul, which means not just relying on what you see with your physical eyes to determine your personal experience, but what you know with your mind and your inner vision, that changes everything.
Yeah, wow. And our belief systems have been strongly influenced since childhood. I read psychology and childhood development and beyond. And then this stays with us in adulthood. How can we overcome our human, and I love how you describe it, BS?
That's right. Our human BS is our belief system. And the thing is that most people are not in the habit of questioning our belief system. But once you start asking, wow, who am I really if I'm not only human? And what is God? To go beyond dogma, to go beyond what we've been taught. When you start realizing that we all accept this phrase, the sun rises and sets every day, but does it really? It doesn't.
Yeah.
It only that way. And so there are so many things that we take for granted. But when you start actually practicing what I talk about in my book, and many people may be familiar with this as self-inquiry, the deeper questions, but you don't just ask them in a wondering sense. You ask them by going within and actually expecting to receive an answer. Then you start getting insights that are beyond something that you've been taught. And you start then asking the question, where is that coming from? And you realize that you're connected to a source of wisdom that's been here all along. But until we make that shift, we may be missing out on some truly great wisdom.
Yeah, and you've studied, the ancients have a lot of wisdom too, just share with us. And that's something that you've looked at as well.
Well, I have studied a bit, but only to validate what I have discerned in my own personal meditations and the interactions I've had with sentient beings who have come in those meditations and provided me what I call adventures in consciousness. I didn't even know such a thing was possible, but now I teach other people how to have those own adventures themselves. And it's truly mind-blowing and expanding, so that then the personal research in the books and what the ancients says all comes together and shows this web of connections that we're part of.
Well, you know well, I think, Eben Alexander and Karen Newell. And yes. I love, yeah, they were so keen for you to come on. And as I said, we're gifted to have you here. But Karen too, she's looked at the ancients and the sounds and sacred acoustics, and she moved us so much by what she said. But she's even looked at the Dead Sea Scrolls. She's gone right back. Is that something that interests you as well?
Oh, all of it. Many of us end up going down so many rabbit holes, and you could get lost in all these paths once we open to the great mysteries of the world and start to get answers. So I have found that we all have guides, and we have our own higher self that will guide us to which rabbit hole we want to go down, and we can specialize. But absolutely everything you mentioned fascinates me, and I've even produced my own binaural beats meditations that I
really
have. Yes, that my students do, and it gets you into this beautiful, coherent, whole brain state very quickly, rather than spending years trying to access the higher states. We can get into those states very quickly and find that there's so much more accessible to us.
Yeah, I get confused. Brainwaves is the name of our show, but do you access more through, people don't worry about it, you can look it up later, theta waves, which is a level of brainwave, or is it gamma, or is it a combination of both, or is that too scientific for us today?
Not at all scientific. When I do a session for clients and I connect with their loved ones who have passed, ideally I'm in an alpha brainwave state, just a gently relaxed but highly focused state. When I connect directly with my guides, who I've been channeling for over a decade and get daily messages from, I actually dip into a deeper, more expanded state known as theta. Delta is like sleep, so I don't go into delta. But right. I'm told that many times we dip into gamma, but I don't have evidence of that, and I'm not experienced in that, but for sure, I play around a lot with alpha and theta.
So just correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going totally off the direction, but I'm curious. Is alpha the waves that you just feel a little bit prior to going to sleep? Is that right, or am I offbeat there?
That would be more of the theta as you're really dropping it, deeply
okay.
relaxed. But just a few very deep, slow breaths, and we can all experience alpha.
And that's what you're there to teach us all about through your workshops and through your books. How many books have you written now?
I have 15 books. The brainwave states is just one little aspect of how to connect across the veil. With my left brain's background, I love that we can actually use systems to connect across the veil, replicable patterns and processes, so that we can pretty much be guaranteed that every time we use those systems, we'll make a connection.
Wow, that is exciting. I haven't read all your books, but I guess I'm going to have to start. I might take a month off and just sit there and read, because I've got so much to learn from you. And I must say too, I do have my own medium, and gosh, she has brought so much love and light and comfort to my life. Lucy Pollard, I just mention her because she'll be listening to us. Now, we talked about the spiritual revolution and what is this shift? How do you do it? And you talk about it in the Awakened Way, something we can all do. I think we partly mentioned that, with the right guidance.
Yeah, it's really just a shift in focus and identity. Once we realize that we're souls now, we learn to live from the soul's perspective instead of the story of you. If you could just state your name, this is the story of Suzanne, the story of Julianne, whoever you have taken yourself to be, you come through sitting in the silence regularly to realize there is an aspect of you that can step back from the story to observe it. It's detached, yet compassionate, yet neutral. It doesn't judge the story, but it's part of us. That's the soul. It's much more of an expanded, loving, spacious state of awareness. We're so used to it, we don't realize that when we're in those moments of total connection with each other, of love for each other, that's when we are expressing ourselves as the soul. But we can actively shift to that state of consciousness, and it's from that state when we can much more easily connect with others across the veil, with loved ones, with guides, even with angels. So it's a very important shift to make, and it's very simple to do.
Yeah, I'm going to come back. Sorry about the little noise there. It's not meant to be here. We can edit that out, guys. In Arizona. See how international we are? Now, as you said, we all have our story of self-narrative, and you've said how so important this is to set this aside and be open and to learn. Now, can you give us a couple of tips, perhaps exercises, to teach us how to enhance this perspective of being one with our souls and that with others? As I love him, Carl Jung describes the collective unconscious. Can we make this oneness conscious in our living? And is there any evidence that these techniques have improved lives, Suzanne?
Oh my God.
That's a big question. Go for it, Gal.
Yes, in the book, The Awakened Way, I actually have 25 different practices that people can do to come to know themselves as souls. My personal favorite is what I call the sip of the divine, where SIP stands for sit in peace. And it's a very simple practice where you take one question for which you don't have an answer, and you sit for just 3 minutes. This way, there's no excuse such as I don't have enough time or I can't quiet my mind. And you take that question in expecting some aspect of higher consciousness to answer, and you quiet yourself. You drop into that alpha brainwave state just with 1 to 3 deep, slow breaths. And then you train yourself to focus by simply asking the question and watching how your mind reacts. And you start to notice, wait, that's a routine thought of mine, and you let it go. And you go back to listening or watching for the answer to your question. And you start to realize, wait, I am observing my mind. So maybe I'm not only my mind. So sooner or later, an idea, an image will pop up that stands out from your normal mind's activity. And then you engage it. You say, this may be the answer to my question. What more do I need to know? And in just 3 minutes of doing that every day, you start to realize you're getting answers. You're accessing wisdom, but you are also creating space in your mind so that insights arise throughout the day. And you're noticing how many of your thoughts are mundane, habitual, don't really serve you, and you notice them and let them go. So very simple training process there.
Yeah, we had a gentleman from Croatia who described us all having monkey brains. I love that, where all your thoughts, they're bubbles. You jump from one to one to one, and that can almost be stressful. The other word is metacognition. We can watch our own thoughts, like you said,
Yes.
and that's how you probably help and train people.
Absolutely. And in mediumship, when you connect with loved ones across the veil, the number one question people ask is, how do I know this is not my imagination? And it's because it's what you're receiving stands out from those ordinary thoughts, your own thoughts. So whatever is unusual. For example, this morning I did a reading for a woman whose husband passed 9 months ago. Her daughter was a classmate of mine in school growing up. We I did when we were friends, childhood friends, that I would one day be a medium and help her connect with her father. The reunion this morning was phenomenal. And he started showing me that he had a great love of bluegrass music. I don't know if you know the genre.
Yes.
And he found me playing mandolin and banjo. And in fact, it was a favorite thing of his. And she and her sister have a mandolin and a banjo. So that stood out in my mind. I knew that came from him. And that's what I'm talking about, evidence. So here they are just feeling so much more joyful today. They already knew that Dad had to still be around, and now they have the evidence of it. So it's beautiful.
What a beautiful thing you do to bring so much comfort. Can you give me, just for my curiosity, because my medium's listening, Lucy, any examples, other examples where you've brought such hope and joy to other people through your mediumship?
Well, one of my most healing sessions was for a woman who didn't tell me who she wanted to hear from, but her husband just stepped into my awareness immediately. He showed me that he passed from an aneurysm in the brain and that he knew she was traveling for the first time by herself since he passed, traveling to England. And she looked at me and she said, "How do you know those things?" And I said, "Because he's right here telling me that." And then he said something that just changed her life. He said, literally, he said, "Don't you dare take those pills in your purse."
Oh.
And she looked at me in shock and she said, "My doctor sent me to see you because I've been so depressed over my husband's death that she didn't know what else to do for me." And I was so distraught that I stopped at the pharmacy on the way here and filled my purse with enough pills to do myself in if I didn't hear from him today. Wow. And here he comes, word for word. "Don't you dare take those pills in your purse." I met up with her a year later. She was just a different person. She was enjoying life again. She knew that her husband was still part of her life, albeit across the veil, and still here to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I know my dad comes through, and I know it's him because he says, "Watch your money, write it down." And it's exactly the way he speaks. So I still don't watch my money, but he's watching me. That's a little aside. Now, how does understanding and living, as your book, The Awakened Way, change things for those who are maybe a little skeptical, maybe just a little curious, and help them and all of us to live in a more self-fulfilled, I'll say that word again, fulfilling way? Yeah, I'd love to know this.
Oh,
Explain.
it just changes everything. When I look back on my military career, I had no coping tools other than what the Navy taught us, which was suck it up.
Ah,
You just get some strong backbone and muscle through it. And I went through September 11th attacks up close and personal. I was in the last aircraft in U.S. airspace, returned to the Pentagon to stare at my own office building with a big hole in the side and on
yeah.
fire. And I had no coping tools. I had no idea I had guides to help me or that I was never alone. To make this shift to knowing we are souls, you can read about it. I can tell you about it, but the tools in that book show you how to experience yourself as already whole and complete, and to know that you're not alone and you have guidance from higher beings, that your loved ones who have passed are still with you, that everything passes, that there is a reason for everything. Truly, Juliana, it changes
Mm.
everything.
Yeah, and what a gift it is when you have that
If I could
understanding.
just add to that, the
Yeah.
other benefit is that I now have so much love for everyone that I never felt before. It's a sense of connection with everyone because I see them soul to soul. And that's what's missing for most of us. We have self-help books that help you get over your traumas that we all have. But to learn to rise above the trauma and feel that innate connection, heart to heart and soul to soul, that we already have with everyone, and to bring that back online is a gift beyond measure.
Wow. Yeah. And that we talked a little bit before I did about evidence-based research. Please, a couple of your nuggets, as you call them in your book, there is a greater reality. Can you please give us a little bit of a line on that one?
Yes, indeed. I've been tested at the University of Arizona numerous times and double-blind studies to make sure that I wasn't reading somebody's mind. It wasn't psychic work. It was actually tapping into beings who used to walk around in a body. I've also been tested at the Institute of Noetic Science, IONS. They had a skull cap with multiple leads to a computer testing me, and it was very interesting because we talked about brainwave states earlier. I decided to have a little fun as they were hooking me up and just drop into that alpha brainwave state that I've trained myself to access. And the lead researcher, Dr. Radin, turned the computer screen around. He says, "What did you just do? We haven't even started, and you've just now started kicking out some really coherent alpha waves."
Yay!
Your evidence, any normal human being can learn to access that nice expanded state that allows us to be in the flow and focus and access insights that we can all use to better our lives here.
I love that word flow. It's a wonderful state where you don't think about the past, you don't think about the future. You're just totally involved and in the now. I think that might be part of the key to
And it is part
what
of
you're
the alpha
talking about.
brainwave state.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
It's sort of, folks, when you might be painting a work of art or dealing with an exciting concept and you're totally there. And I guess that extends to what you talk about, understanding a little bit of soulful living. It is that state which you can possibly expand and live in perpetuity, like you, Suzanne. Am I on the right track?
Oh, absolutely. And it starts with the belief that this is possible for anyone. And then a little bit of a miracle, playful mindset that what if I change my way of thinking? What if I try this sip of the divine for 3 minutes of the day? What if I could do this too? And that just opens you up. It opens the flow.
It's a very wonderful state of being. I am very interested also in, I don't know if you've touched on it. I know Eben Alexander, who was with us 2 weeks ago, the Windridge Certified Research Centre for Mediumship. Have you had any contact with this wonderful organisation?
I'm very familiar with them. I have read their studies. I very much respect their work. They're doing
Yes,
great to bring
phenomenal.
credibility to mediumship. They already had stopped certifying mediums. So I haven't actually worked with them. I've had them on my podcast, but I wish we had more organizations like that so that people understood this is not paranormal. It's becoming more and more normal.
Yeah, it's opened up. It's no longer seen as, ooh, do you know in the DSM-5, the Diagnostical Statistical Manual, the latest one, even in 2022, that magical thinking, clairvoyance, and the ilk is registered as a mental disorder? Unbelievable. But my professor actually said to all of us, hey, forget that. It's really becoming mainstream. So even the Harvard professor has said that. That was very reassuring.
They need a rewrite of that. And I can tell you that it doesn't take a psychologist to watch a video I just posted recently. It's online called Actual Evidence of the Afterlife with Suzanne Giesemann. I posted a full-length reading I did for a couple whose daughter died of cancer in her early 20s. And you can see this couple during the session with me, how they've just been dragged down for the 3 years since her death. And you could just feel the weight on them. And to see them come to life in that reading and to see them afterward, interview them, the lightness, the joy, if that's not healing and helpful, I don't know what is. Yeah. Everybody can see it. Yep.
And now, Suzanne, the lovely Barb Smith is going to tell, I mean, we're talking about cancer just then, is going to touch on how her own journey and her spiritual beliefs helped her defeat stage 4 cancer, Suzanne. A shift in lifestyle, amazing, but importantly, finding the strength from her spiritual beliefs and self-talk. Barb?
Thank you very much, Julianne, and hi, Suzanne. Yes, I'm one of the lucky ones. In 2004, I was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma with an 18-month lifespan. And now this is my 20th year. I have not had chemo or any other radiation therapy, even though I was open-minded to it, but I believed I needed to get into an immune state through everything green as much as I can, so lifestyle changes, but a lot of my belief system and reading to myself every day, little cards I have produced, like I'm getting better and better every day. I love myself unconditionally and many things like that. And those things have helped me, and I've then handed those on to other people so that we can stop our self-talk and be in a position that if things come our way, we can go to heal ourselves and take on the advice from the right people. Not saying we shouldn't go down the allopathic path, but we should also be open to naturopathy.
Yeah, and Barb, we're not clinicians here. If you have any qualms or even distress after hearing anything in our, I think, wonderful chat, please reach out to your own clinician. And most importantly, Suzanne, we here support research, particularly in the area of mental health research. And Barb, you might just like to give the accolades to our institution that we do support.
Yes, Julianne, we support the Black Dog Institute, which people can Google, and it's a not-for-profit institute. And, of course, no donation is too small, and any research that we can do to help other people.
Thanks, Suzanne, and my both adorable women and impressive women. Thanks, Suzanne and Barb. And yes, Suzanne, you have, as I said, been wonderful, inspiring, and to be inspired further, The Awakened Way. You can Google it, you can order it, don't miss out, by Suzanne Giesemann. And thank you so much for the privilege to chat with you. You can turn to Suzanne's website, and it's all in the Brainwaves Bistro website. So please do that. Thanks, gals. Thanks for being with us all the way from Pacific time in the US, not Mountain time. and we are blessed to have you and know you. Thank you both.
It was a true pleasure. Thank you.